Hey everyone, TD here. Welcome back to the Symfony Command Series 2025. In this episode, we're taking a deeper look at routing in Symfony 7. Static routes, dynamic parameters, annotations, generating URLs in Twig, and even some CLI route debugging. We've already created a basic controller with a route in our previous episode. Just to refresh, Symfony routes map URLs to controller methods that return a response, usually a Twig template. Now let's say we want a route like /blog/Symfony routing, where the last part is dynamic. Symfony makes this super easy using route placeholders. Let's create the blog controller and show you how to add the slug. All right, new blog controller created. Nice and clean. Let's just close all the other unnecessary windows so we can stay focused. Now let's test the controller in the browser and make sure everything's working as expected. Let's go ahead and remove the default controller styling for that code wrapper. It's a bit much for what we need right now, and we want to keep things clean and focused on the content. Once that's done, we'll refresh and check out the changes in the browser. Let's quickly talk about this thing we call a slug. A slug is just a URL-friendly version of a title or string. It's usually all lowercase, spaces are replaced with dashes, and any special characters are stripped out. Why slug? Well, the term actually comes from old newspaper printing, where a slug was a short label for an article. In web development, we use it to make URLs clean, readable, and SEO-friendly. So instead of something like /blogid equals 123, we get /blog Symfony routing. Way easier on the eyes and better for search engines too. All right, let's add a bit of bootstrap styling here to make our blog page look cleaner and to really see the slug in action. Simple, but it goes a long way for clarity, especially when you're building dynamic pages like this. This automatically grabs the slug from the URL and passes it into the method. Let's test it in the browser. As you can see here, we've hit an error. The URL is expecting a slug, and when it's not provided, things break pretty badly. No worries though. In the next example, I'll show you a fix or a simple workaround to handle missing slugs more gracefully. Yeah, that's not going to work the way it is. Let's wrap these two span tags in their own div tags. That should give us better structure and make styling a whole lot easier. All right, now let's add some bootstrap spacing utilities to these div tags. Maybe a bit of margin on the top and bottom, just to give each section some breathing room and make the layout cleaner. Okay, for our next example, we're going to create a new profile controller that will display a username from the URL. Here's something cool. You can make route parameters optional by setting a default value. So if no username is provided, Symfony will just fall back to something like guest. Super handy when you're building fallback routes, user profiles, or just want to avoid those nasty 404s when someone forgets to type in a username. Let's try it. We're applying the same principle here as we did with the slug in the previous example. This time, we're just using username instead. It's still a string being passed from the URL, but now we'll add a default value so the route remains functional even if no username is supplied. This way, if someone visits the page without a username, Symfony will automatically use our default, clean, simple, and user-friendly. There we go. Now we just need to pass the username variable into the Twig template so we can test it properly. I'll simply copy the previous example's div tag where we displayed the slug and just replace slug with username. Quick and easy. Let's see it in action. All right, for our next example, we're going to create a new product controller. This time, we'll restrict the route to only accept certain patterns, like numbers. Symfony makes this really simple using requirements in the root definition. For example, we can tell Symfony to only match the route if the parameter is a number. So if you try /product/ABC, it'll return a 404, but /product/123 will work perfectly. Let's set that up and test it in the browser. Just like we did with the previous two examples, the blog slug and the username, we'll define a dynamic route parameter as ID, but this time, instead of treating it as a string, we'll use int to make it clear that we're expecting a number. This helps keep our code cleaner, and Symfony can automatically validate and type hint the value for us. Let's implement it and see it in action. Oops, classic mistake. We forgot to match the variable name in the Twig template with the one we passed from the controller. Let's quickly fix that by changing the Twig variable from ID to product_ID, and we're good to go. One of Symfony's most powerful features is being able to generate routes using their name. This keeps things dynamic and avoids hard coding. Super clean and easy to manage. If the route ever changes, your links don't break. They follow the name. Let's run a quick CLI command to view all registered routes. This shows you the name, method, path, and controller. As your app grows, this becomes a crucial tool for troubleshooting or checking what's available. Here's another useful tip. You can actually move the route attribute to sit above the controller class itself, setting a common base path for all the functions inside that controller. Then for each individual function, like show, edit, or list, you just add the remaining path that's relevant to that specific action. It keeps your routing clean, especially as your controller grows with multiple endpoints. Let me show you how this works in practice. Also good to know, as soon as you start working with Symfony security features, you can use things like as granted attribute to control access to specific routes. For example, you might want to restrict access to the /profile route so only logged in users, or even users with a specific role, can view it. We'll definitely dive deeper into Symfony's security system in a future episode, but it's great to be aware of it early on as your app grows. And that's it for this episode. We covered dynamic routing with slugs, usernames, and numeric IDs, made parameters optional, added root requirements, and passed everything neatly to our Twig templates. We also touched on route organization and gave a quick teaser on security features. Until then, keep building and see you in the next one.